They tried to destroy him in battle. They failed. So they chose a different weapon: blood. The war drums thundered in the distance. Dust choked the air as warriors clashed, spears colliding in violent rhythm. Among the chaos, a whisper traveled through trembling lips. "That is Shaka." Fear etched itself into the faces of his enemies. But before he was a king, he was a boy, rejected by his own people.
Look, the boy, that's Shaka.
Long before the battles, Shaka's world was small, cruel, and unyielding. His mother, Nandi, endured ridicule from all who knew her. The whispers of illegitimacy haunted their every step, carving shame into their souls. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, but worse was the hunger of acceptance. Each mocking laugh fed a growing ember within Shaka, silent but fierce.
She carries the son of no man. How can she be anything but disgrace?
Shaka's small hands gripped empty bowls, yet he learned quickly that survival required more than food. He learned to hide, to listen, to endure. Every insult, every shove, planted seeds of rage. The boy who was mocked began to watch, to remember, to dream of a world where he would never bow. Exile was both punishment and protection. Nandi led him into the harsh wilderness, far from mocking eyes. Nights were cold, meals were scarce, and the wild whispered dangers. Yet in that solitude, Shaka discovered strength. His heart hardened like the spear he would one day wield.
We endure, Shaka. One day the world will bend to you.
One day they will kneel.
Even the smallest victories were savored. A bird caught, a root unearthed, a quiet moment free from mockery. Shaka's mind grew sharper, his eyes more observant. Every scornful laugh, every sneer, became fuel. The boy who hungered for respect would not remain small forever. The village that had rejected him watched from afar as the boy learned the ways of the land. He ran faster than the herds, struck harder than the rocks, and endured more than anyone expected. Pain became his teacher. Hunger became his companion. Rage became his shadow.
Strength grows where sorrow digs deep.
Mockery followed them everywhere. Yet, in every humiliation, Shaka found clarity. He studied the faces of those who scorned him, learning fear and desire alike. He saw weakness and cunning, laughter and betrayal, all lessons for the boy who would rise.
He will never be more than as a shadow of his mother's shame.
The nights were the hardest. Alone, under stars, he whispered promises to the wind. Promises of power. Promises of respect. Promises that someday, every sneer would meet his wrath. Hunger sharpened his senses. The wilderness became both teacher and battleground. Shaka learned to move silently, to strike decisively, to survive when others faltered. Each hardship etched patience into his soul.
Do not fear hunger, my son. Let it make you strong.
Okay, Mama, they'll see me.
He began to dream of more than survival. He dreamt of respect, of power, of a world that would tremble at his name. But dreams alone would not forge a king. Only fire, pain, and relentless determination could.
I will not be ignored.
Years of pain, hunger, and humiliation culminated in a single moment. Shaka gripped a spear as if it were an extension of his will. The boy who had been mocked, shamed, and rejected would rise. One day, all who laughed at him would kneel.
One day, they will kneel.
The boy became a youth among warriors. Muscles carved by hunger were now shaped by discipline. In the service of Chieftain Jiswayo, Shaka entered a world where weakness was exposed and strength was worshipped. The laughter of childhood was gone. Here, only endurance mattered.
If you fall, you rise before I count 3. I will not fall. Good. Now prove it.
Training was merciless. Bare feet struck hard earth until they bled. Shields felt heavier than stone under the midday sun. Pain was not an enemy here. It was proof of progress. And Shaka endured more than any of them.
You pushed too hard. Not hard enough. Head out enough.
At night, while others rested, Shaka studied. He watched formations. He memorized movement. He questioned tradition in silence. There had to be a better way to fight.
Why throw a spear and stand defenseless?
The throwing spear had long defined their battles. Warriors cast them from a distance, then retreated. But Shaka imagined something closer, something intimate, something decisive.
What if the spear never leaves your hand?
He shortened the blade, thickened the shaft, crafted a weapon meant not for distance, but for controlled proximity. Some mocked him again, but this time, he did not feel small.
You want to fight face to face? Yes. I don't want to strike once and retreat or become defenseless.
The first test came without warning. Rival warriors approached at dawn, their silhouettes cutting through the mist. Hearts pounded, shields tightened, and Shaka stepped forward.
Hold formation! Stay behind me.
The enemy hurled their spears from afar. Warriors raised shields, bracing, but Shaka did something unthinkable. He ran toward them. Instead of retreating after the first clash, he closed the distance. Shield struck shield. Breath met breath. His new spear moved with terrifying precision. The enemy faltered. They were not prepared for closeness in battle. Panic replaced confidence. And in that moment, Shaka saw something shift. Fear. His regiment followed his lead. Close formation. Encirclement. Precision. The battlefield moved like a living creature under his direction. Something new had been born.
Form the arc! Hold steady! Advance as one! Form the arc! Advance with strength! We follow! Hold the line! Strike as one!
When the dust settled, silence lingered. No one laughed now. The boy once mocked stood breathing steadily, eyes calm. He had changed the rhythm of war.
You changed everything. I told you I'll not fail.
His methods spread through the ranks. Warriors trained harder, moved faster, endured longer. Discipline replaced chaos. Strategy replaced tradition. He pushed them beyond comfort. Long marches without sandals. Endless drills under the sun. He was forging more than soldiers. He was forging unity. Under Chief Dinjasweo's watchful eye, Shaka's influence grew. What began as curiosity turned into respect. What began as respect turned into quiet reliance. Whispers now carried admiration instead of mockery. Warriors straightened when he approached. His silence commanded more than shouting ever could. The boy who was mocked had become a force. His strategies reshaped armies. His presence silenced doubt. And as night fell over the savannah, one truth echoed quietly through the land. The laughter stopped. Power does not arrive with drums. It arrives quietly. Chief Dinjasweo watched the young warrior who had reshaped his regiments. Strength alone was not rare, but vision was. And Shaka had begun to see further than the horizon.
You do not fight like the others, because the others fight yesterday's war.
Respect had replaced ridicule. Warriors now listened when Shaka spoke, not because he demanded it, but because he had earned it in dust and discipline. Influence was forming around him like gathering storm clouds.
If he leads, we win. Then let him lead.
But power invites tension. Other commanders watched carefully. Some saw brilliance. Others saw threat. Shaka's silence unsettled them more than words ever could.
He rises too quickly. Then watch him closely.
When news arrived of unrest among smaller clans, Dinjasweo turned to Shaka. Not out of favor, but out of necessity. Strategy would now matter more than strength.
Bring them under us. They will join or they will kneel. I promise you that.
Shaka did not rush. He studied the smaller clans, their weaknesses, rivalries, fears. War was not always the first weapon. Sometimes patience conquered faster than blades. One clan resisted openly. They expected distance warfare. They expected retreat. They did not expect Shaka's formation to move like tightening jaws. The confrontation was swift and controlled. No chaos, no panic, only precision. When it ended, resistance dissolved into submission.
We join you. You stand with us now.
Word spread quickly. The young commander was no longer simply a warrior. He was becoming a force that reshaped the land itself. And with each alliance, his shadow grew longer.
They speak your name in every kraal. Let them speak. They either stand with us or perish.
But greatness never walks alone. It carries suspicion behind it. Some whispered that Shaka sought more than victory. They feared ambition behind his discipline.
He could replace any of us, perhaps even more. He's getting out of hand.
Then news shattered the calm. Dingiswayo had been betrayed and captured. The balance of power shifted overnight, and every eye turned to Shaka.
The chief is gone. Then we move.
The capture of Dingiswayo left a vacuum. Vacuums do not remain empty for long. Shaka moved swiftly, calling loyal regiments to his side. His voice did not tremble. His eyes did not waver.
The land does not wait for the uncertain. We stand with you, Shaka.
Some commanders hesitated. They questioned whether a warrior so young should lead them. Shaka did not argue. He simply acted. Authority began to center around decisive movement. One rival commander spoke too boldly. His influence spread out like smoke. Shaka understood something vital. Division kills faster than enemies. And so, quietly, the influence was removed. Training grew harsher. Formations tighter. Standards higher. Shaka demanded more because he had endured more. And the warriors followed, not out of fear, but belief.
Your strength is not enough. Your unity must be stronger.
The Zulu name began to change. No longer a small clan among many. It became a force that reorganized itself around discipline, loyalty, and strength. Identity became weapon.
We are Zulu! Then carry it with honor.
Territory widened carefully. Some villages joined through negotiation. Others yielded to demonstration of strength. Shaka preferred efficiency over destruction.
We will join your protection. Then stand with us in truth and loyalty.
When he entered a kraal, conversation stopped. Children stared. Warriors straightened. Presence cannot be taught, it is earned. Some followed him out of admiration. Others followed him out of fear. Shaka understood both were useful. Loyalty built strength. Fear preserved it.
They fear you. Then they will not betray me.
He avoided unnecessary battles. Pride did not guide him, outcome did. Each movement was calculated. Each expansion measured. With each success, his shadow lengthened. Smaller chiefs began to feel pressure. Not from invasion, but inevitability. There was no grand ceremony. No crown forged in gold. Authority formed through action. And one morning, the warriors bowed lower than before. He did not smile. Power was not celebration. It was responsibility and control. His gaze moved across the kneeling regiments, measuring loyalty. But in distant kraals, not all knelt willingly. Some feared the speed of his rise. Others feared the depth of his ambition. And in the quiet of night, whispers became plans.
If we wait longer, he will be unstoppable.
He no longer walked as a commander. He moved as destiny itself. Warriors knelt not from habit, but from certainty. The land trembled not from fear, but from recognition. But power breeds enemies in silence. In distant kraals, men spoke in hushed tones. Alliances formed in shadows. And as Shaka's empire expanded, so did the fear of what he might become. Power had been won through discipline and vision. But power, once secured, began to demand more than strength. The responsibilities of kingship pressed against Shaka's silence. Victory had crowned him. Now expectations surrounded him. The death of his mother, Nandi, struck deeper than any spear ever could. The warrior who had endured exile now faced emptiness. Grief hollowed him. And in that hollow space, something changed.
You were my strength, Mom. Why must you leave me?
His sorrow became decree. The kingdom was commanded to mourn with him. Silence replaced celebration. The air itself felt heavy beneath his rule. Where once there had been controlled ambition, now there was sharpened intensity. Shaka trusted fewer voices. Laughter no longer echoed near him. Even loyalty began to feel fragile. Power isolates. The higher he stood, the fewer stood beside him. Advisors spoke cautiously. Warriors avoided his gaze. The king who commanded thousands stood increasingly alone. Whispers began again. This time not of a boy, but of a king who had grown unpredictable. Fear, once useful, began to ferment into quiet resistance. Every shadow seemed to hold betrayal. Every silence felt deliberate. Shaka's instincts, once strategic, sharpened into suspicion. Among those closest to him were his half-brothers. They had watched his rise. They had benefited from his strength. But they also saw the cracks forming. Fear can unite as strongly as ambition. The brothers spoke quietly, weighing risk against survival. Kings fall not from weakness, but from isolation. The air felt different that night. Wind moved sharply across the grasslands. Even the cattle stirred restlessly. Something inevitable approached. They approached him not as enemies, but as blood. Familiar faces. Familiar voices. That is how betrayal enters. There was no battlefield. No war cry. Only closeness. And realization. The king who had reshaped nations fell not to armies, but to fear. Dust rose gently where he stood, and silence returned once more. Morning arrived without celebration. No drums. No commands. The kraal felt hollow, as if the earth itself held its breath. Warriors stood where their king once stood, and did not know where to look. Word traveled faster than wind. Across distant kraals, regiments froze mid-drill. Strength had always flowed from one center. Now that center was gone. Leadership does not transfer easily. The regiments waited for clarity. Loyalty remained, but direction wavered. A kingdom forged in discipline now trembled in uncertainty. Some remembered the exile, the boy mocked by his own people, the hunger in his eyes. They realized the king had never forgotten that hunger. They remembered the day he changed the spear, the moment he ran toward danger instead of away from it. The rhythm of battle shifted forever. Not all memories were gentle. His rule had been heavy. His grief had hardened him. But even those who feared him could not deny his strength. The training fields felt different without his voice cutting through the air. Dust still rose beneath running feet, but something vital was missing. Discipline remained. Presence did not. Those who had acted now carried their own burden. Power gained through fear rarely rests easily. The kraal walls felt closer around them. Beyond his lands, neighboring chiefs spoke his name carefully. Some with relief, others with unease. But none ignored it. The grasslands still carried echoes of marching regiments. The wind still whispered across battlefields reshaped by innovation. The land does not forget those who change it. Children began to hear the stories of exile, of innovation, of a king who rose from mockery to dominance. History does not remember comfort. It remembers transformation. He began as a boy mocked in exile. He became a warrior who changed the rhythm of war. He rose as a king who reshaped a people. And though he fell by betrayal, his name did not fall with him. The land still remembers Shaka.